Hey guys, so this is Tosh from Peyton's Craft Corner coming to you with a video, well, a brief video of me applying some glitter HTV by Cricut to my daughter's backpack. So I had already printed and, well, not printed, but cut out these images using my Cricut Maker. And these vinyl that I'm using is the glitter vinyl, but it's the one for the Joy. For some reason, in my opinion, I noticed that it applies a little easier than the regular glitter HTV. I'm going to be using my mini heat press and my heat pillow. I'm going to actually fold that when I place it in the backpack, and I'm going to be using that Teflon sheet. So I'm going to apply all of these images, well, not all of them, but most of them, to the backpack. So let's get into it. So now you're going to see me open the backpack, and I am going to fold that pillow in half in order for it to fit into the backpack. What I had noticed that the first image I tried to press, it didn't stick. So it was I believe it was a holographic heat transfer vinyl. And for some reason it wouldn't stick. I applied a lot of pressure, but it just wouldn't stick. So I took it off and I decided to remove all of the glitter vinyl and the regular HTV vinyl to the from the backing, and just applied it to the backpack, and it pressed with no problem. So this is my first press, and that is of, well, that says Unicorn Squad because my daughter loves unicorns, hearts, and butterflies. So that's what I'll be placing around the backpack. So right here, I'm sizing it up to make sure I put it in the right spot. I also wanted to make sure that the pillow was actually in the spot where the image was. So I'm going to be using the Teflon sheet, and then I'm going to use my mini heat press, which I selected it all the way to the top, the max heat. So, you know, when you use the mini heat press, you can either click it once, twice, or 3 times. I clicked it 3 times. So it's on the selection of the max amount of heat that I can get out of that mini heat press. So when I'm applying the mini heat press to the Teflon sheet, which also is to the image, I'm applying it with a lot of pressure because the surface is not that flat. Even though the pillow is inside, it's still not that flat because, as you can see, the stitching that goes around the backpack kind of made it a little difficult. So I'm applying a little bit of pressure. Now, what I was showing you was that I didn't even have to pull off the backing off of that first image that I pressed. It came off automatically with the Teflon sheet, but it didn't do any damage. So this is the glitter. I believe that was a star. No, I'm sorry. That was a butterfly. So I also turned around the backpack so you could see it a little bit more better. So that was the image what I was mentioning earlier. The holographic heat transfer vinyl, for some strange reason, even with me applying a lot of pressure to it, it did not come off properly. I don't know if it's because I was using a mini heat press, but I don't think that should have made a difference. But for some strange reason, it did not go on like everything else. And just an FYI, I know a lot of people are not aware. Some people are, some people aren't. But vinyl does have an expiration date. Sometimes it can last up to 2 to 3 years, depending on the brand that you're using. But vinyl does have an expiration date. And as I mentioned before, I did apply a lot of pressure, so I was not, I'm like bewildered of why only that image was giving me a little problem. Everything else pressed with no issue. Now, when you're doing this, you want to also apply the Teflon sheet over the other images that you had already pressed, just in case you do graze it with the mini heat press. It doesn't mess up the previous image that you pressed already. So as you can see, the glitter went on fine, but that was it was sticking to the backing. So I applied it again and applied more pressure to it. And for some strange reason, it was not sticking. So I decided not to use it, and I just pulled it up. I had a few other rainbows with the hearts in it, so I just said, you know what, let me just pick it up, because it wasn't sticking. And I was actually examining and trying to figure out why it wasn't sticking, but I just said, you know, forget it. So I use different. Now that's regular heat transfer vinyl by Cricut. All of the vinyl that I'm using is from Cricut, but all of the glitter heat transfer vinyl I'm using is from Cricut, but it's for the Joy. So it's a smaller roll, but to me, in my opinion, the glitter HTV, for some reason, to me, it sticks better. I don't know if it's the adhesive is a little different. I don't know, but to me, it sticks better. So most of the time when I do use glitter heat transfer vinyl, it is from the Joy, unless I'm using a different brand. So because I noticed that I was having a little bit of, excuse me, I was having a little bit of a difficulty with that rainbow, I decided to start peeling off the backing off of the vinyl and just sticking it to wherever I'm going to place it and just press it. And I'm checking right now just to see if it would stick. And I see that it didn't stick, so I'm going to apply a little bit more pressure to it and press it again. Now remember, with the Cricut HTV vinyl, you want to also allow it to cool before you peel it. And I think that was the reason why it wasn't sticking, because I wasn't giving it enough time to cool. So I'm letting that cool off, and I started peeling off the backing off of the other ones. I started pushing the pillow down a little further to make sure that I have the correct amount of spacing, and that it had coverage. Because I didn't want to apply it and then it shifted or something happened, and you see like an indent once it was pressed. Now this was actually the hardest. I think this was the hardest thing that I actually had to use when using any HTV vinyl, because the book bag had so much stitching and stuff going on it as is. So yeah. And now once I peeled off the backing off that first rainbow, I went back in with the Teflon sheet and applied it again. And you want to make sure that the when you're using the backing on any heat transfer vinyl, you want to make sure that it's cool, because you don't want to touch the back end and it's hot. Because even though it's a mini press, that sucker does get hot, and I mean hot. So I started cutting out some more hearts to apply to the book bag. So now I'm going to slow it down. Now this part, I'm going to be working on the upper part of the backpack, which was a little bit more difficult because of the stitching around that part there. Right above the word JanSport, there's a bunch of, well, it's one stitching that goes across from one side of the backpack to the next. So it was a little bit difficulty to apply the heat transfer vinyl to the backpack using the mini press, because you know you trying to get in the crypts and crevices. Hopefully I said that right. And it was a little difficult, so I had to keep turning the mini press when I was applying the heat. Now I also was taking off the heat transfer vinyl off of the backing, because as I mentioned to you before, with the backing on, the backpack was not getting a lot of heat, so I removed it off of the backing in order to allow me to apply it. So that's, I'm sitting there setting up the heat transfer vinyl, placing it where I want it to be placed, and then I'm going to press it. So we're going to slow it down now, and now I am unzipping for the final row, which is the upper part. So now I am going to be flapping down that middle section so I can do that upper part, and then we are almost done. So as I was doing before, I'm going to be placing the images where I feel that I want to place them, and then I'm also going to be removing the heat transfer vinyl off of its backing for me to be able to apply it to the backpack. So like I said, I'm just placing the cutout images, and I'm just placing it where I see fit. Now, typically when I'm applying heat transfer vinyl, I do not take it off of the backing, but because of the type of materials I'm using and what I'm using it for, that's why I did that. And there you have it. The backpack is set. I used HTV, glitter vinyl, and regular heat transfer vinyl on this beautiful backpack. I hope my daughter likes it. If you have any comments, don't forget to leave it in the comment section below. Until next time, thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to my YouTube channel. Thank you.